Right guys, let's continue with the question. So if we now move on, we are ready to calculate direct labor cost. So looking at the answer sheet given, they want me to show direct labor cost in a note form. So I'm going to do just that. So remember, direct labor costs are obviously the people that physically work in the factory and are responsible for manufacturing the product. So your direct labor cost. Okay, do not confuse this with indirect labor cost. Remember, the factory supervisor, indirect because he just walks around. He checks that everyone is doing what they're supposed to do. But the machine operators, the people that physically make the product, maybe by hand if they're stitching or so on, they would obviously be direct labor. So remember what I said earlier on, direct labor, all the cost incurred for direct labor, that would include your wages as well as any additional contributions. So let's go to our information and let's see what's happening in this particular question in terms of direct labor. Right, so if we look at the info given, immediately I notice salary and wages, and again I'm focusing on direct labor. The business employs 20 factory workers at a wage of 1,600 Rand per month each. So remember, in your syllabus, your factory workers would be your direct labor cost. Okay, let's read on. The factory supervisor's salary is 3,200 Rand per month. So remember, factory supervisor, he's in the factory, but he doesn't physically make the product. So he would be regarded as an indirect labor cost or factory overhead. Then I've got the receptionist's salary is 4,000 Rand per month. Now remember what I said earlier on, the receptionist, let's go back to our diagram. Okay, so remember, she's here, she's sitting in the office. So the receptionist has nothing to do with the factory. Okay, so that bit of information, I actually don't need that information for this particular question. So immediately, because I do not want to get confused, I'm going to cross that out because there's no question about my office expenses. So I'm going to cross that out. Then the marketing rep's salary is 3,300 Rand per month. So once again, your marketing rep is responsible for sales and distribution. So this is a selling and distribution cost, and once again has absolutely nothing to do with the actual factory cost. So I would once again cross this out. Why am I crossing it out? Because if by mistake I include this in the production cost statement or any of the notes that we're completing, it's going to be a -1. And remember, we don't want that in our exam. Okay, so let's now look at direct labor cost. We've got 20 workers, okay, each earn a monthly wage of 1,600. Right, and remember, they would have worked for the entire year, so I'm going to have to multiply that by 12. Okay, so let's now take that through to our answer sheet. So we're calculating wages, right, in brackets. I'm just going to repeat the calculation. So we've got 20 workers earning 1,600 Rand per month, and obviously they're going to work for 12 months. Right, if they worked for less than 12 months, they would have mentioned that in the information. So 20 times 1,600 times that by 12, and that gives me a yearly wage of 384,000. So 384,000. Okay, right, what else do I need to look for? I need to look for any additional contributions made by the business. Okay, so let's go back to the same bit of information that we looked at earlier on. Let me just quickly find that info. Right, so the next bit of information, unemployment insurance fund. The law requires a 1% deduction from the earnings of all employees. Now remember, the deductions are something that I'm not interested in, because your deductions is not considered as an expense. You normally get the deductions as a yearly adjustment. So for example, a certain factory worker was not paid at the end of the month. The gross wage was as follows, and then you've got your deductions which become a liability. So I am not interested in the deduction. I am interested in the additional contribution. So the next bit of information is what I need. The business contributes an additional 1%. So that is my additional contribution, which is obviously an additional expense for the business. So remember guys, it's 1% of the wage. Okay, so very, very simple for me to do the calculation. So it's UIF contribution and it's 1%. So I'm going to take the yearly wages, 384,000 times 1%, and that should give me an amount of 3,840. No need for a calculator, that should be straightforward. Okay, right, so my total labor costs, that's what we're doing right now. So my total labor cost, I've got wages there already, plus 3,840, and that gives us an amount of 387,840. So 387,840, and this is what I now take to my production cost statement. I've now calculated direct labor cost. So let's do that. Let's take it to our production cost statement. So direct labor cost, an amount of 387, it was 840. Let's quickly check that. Yeah, that was our total. Okay, right, now, very, very important, grade 12s. You've got to listen. You've got to come closer and you've got to pay attention. Often we find that students, they will fill in direct material cost, they will fill in direct labor cost, and remember, if you made an error in your calculation, often these are method marks. In other words, we're not going to penalize you. You lost the marks in the note, but here we're going to say, okay, let's give them that mark because they've taken their total through. Now, prime cost, this is what really, really upsets me when I mark the section in an exam, is that students tend to forget to fill in prime cost. Now remember, prime cost again is your third method mark. Okay, so what are prime cost? It's basically direct material cost plus direct labor cost. My grade 12s wrote a test a few weeks ago, and again, some of them forgot to fill this in, and that was 1% of the test. So remember, you could get that mark, right? Very easy to get that 1 mark, or you could lose that mark. It's a free mark, guys, just by adding your direct material and your direct labor. So it can't get easier than that. Students tend to forget. You've got to promise me that you guys are not going to. Right, so our prime cost, let's fill that in. So I've got my direct labor costs there filled in already. I'm just trying to move this, plus my direct material cost, 592,600, and that gives me an amount of 980,440. So 980,440. Okay.